up the battle over Lyme disease here in Massachusetts, specifically who should pay for long-term treatment. The latest statistics from the CDC show 96% of confirmed Lyme disease cases are in the Northeast and Upper Midwest, and Massachusetts has the third highest rate of any state. That's why an amendment to the House's version of the state budget bill was added, which would require insurance companies to cover long-term antibiotic therapy to treat the tick-borne illness. But not everyone thinks it's such a great idea. The Boston Globe recently ran an editorial calling the idea a prescription for trouble, arguing the federal government's Centers for Disease Control and Prevention doesn't recognize so-called chronic Lyme disease. Medical specialists believe the persistent ailments are likely caused by residual damage to tissues and the immune system that occurred during the infection. So, is mandating payment the best way to go? We'll discuss that issue in just a minute, but first, should we be trying harder to stop this illness to begin with? WGBH's Stephanie Lydon takes us inside the lab where researchers are working on a vaccine.
It is possible to get a vaccine that protects against Lyme disease. The only catch?
Good girl.
It's reserved for the furry and four-legged only.
It is our recommendation that every dog get vaccinated.
Dogs, of course, aren't the only ones at risk for Lyme. It's a fast-growing problem for people, too. Once confined to coastal areas, Lyme has spread to every community in Massachusetts. In 2014, the state's Department of Public Health confirmed close to 4,000 new cases of Lyme, more than double the number from a decade ago.
I never saw a rash and I never had the fever.
And Julie Ambrosino of Dover never saw the tick that infected her with Lyme disease and left her dealing with often debilitating symptoms.
A lot of brain fog, malaise, debilitating fatigue, joint pain, muscle pain, numbness and tingling, muscle spasms. I mean, really, the list goes on.
So you've got to wonder, if there's a Lyme vaccine for dogs, why not one for people?
There was a vaccine available in the late 1990s, but some patients linked it to arthritis, formed anti-vaccine groups, and took legal action. And although much of the medical community believes that vaccine was safe and effective, the manufacturer pulled it off the market.
Which is why at UMass Medical School's Mass Biologics, researchers have been developing a Lyme vaccine alternative. Unlike a vaccine, which works by injecting bits of bacteria from the disease it's designed to fight, researchers here are using a protein called an antibody.
It would circulate at low concentration in your blood. A tick would come along, bite you, drink your blood, which has the antibody in it, kill the bacteria in the tick, and prevent the transmission to you.
Lyme Prep, as it's called, shows so much promise in lab testing, Klempner believes it has the potential to be a Lyme disease game changer. But it may never get further than this lab because it's not a blockbuster.
They don't see it as a billion-dollar drug, and therefore it's a lost opportunity cost to invest in something that won't be a blockbuster.
And the investment is significant. Testing the drug in humans could cost $100 million. Klempner is hoping to find the money somewhere, a nonprofit, a consortium of states most impacted by Lyme, even crowdsourcing. Funding drugs that prevent rather than treat disease is always a challenge. And while some call Lyme an epidemic, as Julie Ambrosino puts it, you don't really get Lyme until you get Lyme. Stephanie Lydon, WGBH News.
Lyme Prep is similar to a flu vaccine, and you would need a shot every year as we head into tick season. Joining me now are Stacey Hayes-Geer, who was diagnosed with Lyme disease in 2013. Stacey, thanks for coming. Representative Jim Cantwell of Marshfield, who was diagnosed with Lyme himself back in 2013, but was advocating for prevention long before that. Representative, good to see you,
Jim,
too.
thank you for having me.
We'll get back to prevention in a couple of minutes. I just want to be clear. The thing that was passed in the House on its way to the Senate requires insurance companies do what exactly? What do they have to do?
It's an amendment from David Linsky, who's been the champion of this. What it requires, right now, insurance must cover the first 2 rounds of treatment. It can be 28 days for antibiotics. This would require coverage for people like Stacey, people who have had long-term Lyme disease and folks who have had chronic disease. And it's to make sure for those folks who, about 10 to 20% of people who are bitten end up having chronic
For as long as it takes.
For as long as it takes, but it's still, and that's what worries some of the insurers, but it still has to be medically proven, you have to have a physician who actually, in your case, someone who has seen the chronic conditions, who can document them. There are some safeguards, as there is with any medical.
Yeah, but you've heard the arguments against. One, it's too expensive, and two, it sets a bad precedent, basically mandating coverage for an unproven therapy? You're smiling. Why?
Yeah, two things. First of all, that's what they say in every single time we're trying to do coverage for things. Insurance companies, that's their job. They want to say this is too costly. But we have an estimate it would add at most 11 cents to the average policy.
Everybody's bill.
That's right.
Stacey, how does this long-term cost affect you?
Well, I was an executive making a six-figure income. So imagine
Prior to this.
Yeah, prior to this. So imagine the impact on the tax revenues for the Commonwealth. I mean, I was in a pretty high tax.
Because you're not
bracket.
working now.
I'm not working. I haven't
So
been
you're
able to-
paying for the full freight you and your husband are paying full freight for this treatment that is not currently covered by insurance.
We've actually stopped treating because we can't afford it anymore. I did a full year of PICC line antibiotics. At one point, I was doing 11 hours of IVs a day. That's when I started to feel a little bit better, and then the insurance just refused to
So
pay.
you stop because you can't afford it.
No.
What was your life like? Describe a typical day before 2013.
So I was a single mom with 4 active daughters, and I worked for an international company. So I would get up at 5 a.m. and have a video conference call with South Africa or Poland, and go about my day, go to yoga, do my clients, drive all my client calls, drive my kids around, answer emails, and then get back to work again, usually till about midnight.
What's a day like today, now?
My husband brings me breakfast. I wake up in pain. My husband brings me breakfast. My daughter leaps in, kisses me goodbye in the morning, shows me her outfit. And I have a home health aide that comes during the day. This is the first time since last week that I've been out of bed. And I pretty much count the minutes till my daughter and my husband get home every day because I'm just by myself.
Are you in pain when you...
Agonizing pain. With the opiate epidemic, it's really hard to get pain relief. You use more distraction than anything else, and laughter.
When you hear some doctors who are in the field say that Lyme disease is overdiagnosed, and you know the story, I just learned this, where this guy who worked for the National Institute of Health Lyme program a couple of years ago referred to Lyme advocates like you as Lyme loonies. How does that make you feel?
Well, I would say that he should talk to my 15-year-old daughter, whose mom can't take her for mani-pedis or do anything with her, and ask her if Lyme's real.
Is this, Representative, there's a 5-year sunset on this.
Right.
And as somebody who used to lobby, and I use the term loosely, on Beacon Hill, that often to me means that legislators acknowledge that maybe we're not 100% right on this thing. Is that what the sunset is a function of, or no?
I think the sunset were a few things. One is realizing that there was so much conflicting information. We had, from hearings that took place, we had a special commission looking at this.
What was the vote on this amendment vote? Was it overwhelming?
It was overwhelming. It was a voice vote. So
Okay.
in fairness,
Okay.
but there's such great work by David Linsky and others to be able to bring attention to this. I myself was bitten, as you brought forth.
I know, yeah.
There were 8 of us when we were debating this and pushing for this to pass. 8 legislators who have all had Lyme disease themselves. So to answer your question, though, the 5-year, it was a compromise to make sure that we'd be able to have the.
You know what I don't get at all? Beth Daly, who works New England Center for Investigative Reporting, feel free, Stacey. I'm sorry I didn't give it to you earlier. Wrote a great piece in the Globe in 2013 about this, and these numbers to me are staggering. We spend the state
$10
spend
million
$10 million a year on mosquito stuff,
which is important.
We spend $60,000 on tick-borne illnesses, though there's more Lyme disease than West Nile and Eastern equine. So what is the rationale for that?
I think for a few things. We still have to build the basis. Most people, the person who you interviewed who said you don't get Lyme until you get Lyme.
Right.
It's building that awareness. And for Stacey, because Stacey lives in my district, early on when I was receiving the call, to hear people who are professionals who are doing so exceptionally well, this is not a made-up syndrome. And so for here, it's people being aware. When you said the CDC says 300,000 people a year are infected, most of the estimates say there are 4 times more than that. People aren't able to diagnose them.
If this thing passes the Senate and Governor Baker signs it, how does it change your life?
Oh, wow. It gives me hope. I mean, to say that I'm going to be 40 this summer, and, thinking that my life is over at 40 years old, and then I'm not going to see my grandkids, the possibility of this bill gives me hope.
One last thing we started this with prevention. Another thing that's amazing.
Yes.
They have it for animals. Now, very quickly, if we can, would you, I have friends who've gotten Lyme disease too and never even thought that it might be a possibility. Would you, if this preventive thing had existed, would you have thought to have used it?
Yes. However, I think you think it's not going to happen to you. You think that, you know, Lyme disease, you have a tick, it's pulled off, 2 weeks better, 2 weeks of medicine, you're better.
Mm-hmm.
I never, in my wildest, worst nightmares, would have thought this would happen.
You're an incredible advocate for this, I should say. Quickly, if you can.
I would tell you, people will, with climate change, we are going to have these incidents more and more. I was a lucky one because I was bitten, didn't know it for 72 hours, but I had all those symptoms. It wasn't until the brain fog, I was driving and didn't know where I was going, that I said, there's something else is going on, and went to the hospital, and they found the back of my leg, they found the red bullseye.
Can't tell you how many people in the newsroom today when we were discussing this had it as well, and were lucky, like you, as opposed to what you've had to deal with.
It's 10% of the cases are
I know that.
Stacey.
Stacey, it's a pleasure to meet you. I wish you a lot of luck.
so much.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for coming. Representative, you as well.
Thank you very much.
Good
Appreciate
luck
it.
with the bill.